Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, imagine this. A world where every single student learns exactly the way that works best for them.
hmm
No more, one-size-fits-all classrooms. Sounds pretty revolutionary, right?
It really does.
So our deep dive today is all about that future of education, specifically how artificial intelligence, AI, is shaping this, well, incredibly personalized landscape.
Yeah, it's a huge topic.
We're looking at some really interesting ideas from AI in future classrooms, personalized, inclusive learning. It kind of lays out this vision through a conversation between two people, Aisha and Kamal.
Right?
And our mission here is really to pull out the key ideas, the most important insights from their vision for tomorrow's classrooms.
Well, what could that actually look like in practice?
Exactly. So what would it really mean for learning to be totally custom tailored? And, how close are we to making that happen? Let's get into it.
Okay, so I think one of the most transformative ideas is how that traditional classroom setup, the rows of desks, uniformed
Yeah. Get
lessons.
the old factory model.
Exactly. How that starts to change into something much more, well, dynamic, like a tailored workshop for learning.
A workshop, I like that.
Yeah. And the core idea is that every student gets a learning path that's uh, basically built just for them. AI isn't just guessing either. It uses machine learning to look at how students engage, response times, even like metacognitive stuff.
Metacognitive, thinking about thinking.
Right, to build this dynamic profile for each student. So it understands not just what they know, but how they actually learn best, how they absorb and use information.
That seems like the real game changer there. It's not just about making things faster, is it? It's a whole new way of thinking about school.
It's a paradigm shift, definitely. Moving past that old industrial model to finally, recognize and actually respond to how each individual brain works.
So think about Maya. She's a seventh grader, they mentioned. Maybe she's great at geometry, but, really struggles with language arts.
Right, a common scenario.
Yeah, but today, the class just moves on at the same pace for everyone. In this AI future, though, the system sees her strengths, sees her gaps, and dynamically gives her interactive geometry puzzles,
Yeah.
and then maybe switches to audio-based reading passages when she needs that support in language arts. It's learning that actually adapts to you.
And it's not just the content that adapts. This is crucial. The actual delivery method changes too,
Mm-hmm.
in some pretty sophisticated ways.
How so?
Well, maybe visual learners get animated simulations to help them grasp a concept. Auditory learners might listen to podcasts or narrated stories.
Okay.
And kinesthetic learners, the ones who need to move and do, they could use VR, virtual reality, to actually, say, walk through ancient Rome,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing history.
Wow. Okay, so the AI is tuning everything, the format, the difficulty.
Exactly. Format, difficulty, the examples it uses, even the tone of voice sometimes, to make sure the information really clicks with that student's style and maybe even their emotional state at that moment.
That adaptability, that flexibility, it feels like that has huge implications for inclusion too, right? Making the classroom work for everyone.
Absolutely. That's one of the most exciting aspects. This level of personalization could really foster inclusion on a scale we've just never managed before. It might even, change how we think about separate resource rooms or special support.
So how does that actually look, like day to day for a student?
Yeah, they give some good examples like Tariq, who has dyslexia. The system notices maybe when text is slowing him down,
Okay.
and it instantly offers options like high contrast fonts, or maybe just reads the text aloud for him seamlessly.
Right, without him having to ask or feel singled out.
Precisely. Or Lena, who was hearing impaired.
Hmm.
She just automatically get live captions or maybe even sign language avatars translating the lesson in real time.
So inclusion becomes like built in, woven into the
Yeah,
system.
exactly. Powered by this precise technology, but serving a very human need.
Okay, but here's a question that always comes up. If AI is doing all this heavy lifting, the personalization, the adaptation, tracking progress, what happens to the teacher? Is there a risk they get sort of pushed aside?
That's a really common concern. But the vision here is quite the opposite. It's not about replacing teachers at all. It's about uh, elevating their role profoundly
Elevating how?
by freeing them up from all the routine administrative stuff that takes up so much time now.
Like grading basic quizzes or attendance.
Exactly. Automated quizzes, giving basic feedback on homework, tracking attendance, managing logs. AI can handle that efficiently.
Okay.
And that frees up the teacher to become more of a coach, a mentor, focusing on nurturing critical thinking, sparking curiosity, dealing with the social-emotional side of learning.
The human stuff.
The irreplaceable human connection, that becomes their main job, where they can have the biggest impact.
That makes sense. It's a shift in focus, not removal. So if teachers have more time freed from those mundane tasks, what new skills are they helping students build? You mentioned critical thinking.
Absolutely. Critical thinking is key. And there's this really interesting idea mentioned, the Socratic bot pilot program.
Socratic bot. Like Socrates.
Kind of, yeah. It's an AI designed to act like a Socratic questioner. It doesn't just give answers. It asks these probing, open-ended questions, maybe about ethical dilemmas, like privacy online.
To make students think deeper.
Exactly. To guide them to think critically, form arguments. The AI initiates it, gets them thinking, and then the teacher steps in to lead the bigger classroom discussion, building on what the AI started.
Huh. So the AI primes the pump, and the teacher facilitates the deeper learning.
Right. And the results they saw: higher engagement, students making more nuanced arguments, really developing those critical thinking muscles.
That's fascinating. It feels like it shifts the whole goal away from just memorizing facts. I mean, I wish I'd had a Socratic bot back in school.
Me too.
But seriously, it changes what we measure as success, right?
Yeah.
AI means students don't just need to memorize stuff AI can look up instantly.
Precisely. The value shifts. It becomes about teaching students how to learn. How do you ask the right questions? How do you evaluate information you find? How do you work with others to solve complex problems?
So problem solving, creativity, critical evaluation, those become the core skills.
Yes. Moving from just consuming information to having real intellectual agency, being able to think for yourself.
Okay, I'm sold on the potential, but this involves collecting a lot of data, doesn't it? Every click, every pause, every answer given. That raises some pretty big privacy flags.
It absolutely does, and that's a huge part of the conversation in these sources. They don't ignore it. This is where ethical frameworks are just non-negotiable.
What does that look like? What kind of frameworks?
Well, things like completely transparent policies. Parents and students need to know exactly what data is collected and why. Robust encryption is essential. And real consent, not just some tiny print nobody reads.
Right, actual informed consent.
Yes. Clear opt-in choices. Maybe even offline modes for families who just aren't comfortable with constant digital tracking. And things like data anonymization where possible.
The goal being?
The goal is to make sure AI is an empowering tool, something that helps the student, not a surveillance system. It's all about building trust and protecting learners' rights.
Makes sense. Another big challenge that always comes up with new tech in schools is the digital divide. Is there a risk that, wealthy schools get these amazing AI platforms first?
And underfunded schools get left even further behind. Yeah, that's a very real risk.
So how do we avoid that? What are the solutions discussed?
It requires a really concerted effort. Things like strong public-private partnerships to make platforms more affordable or accessible. Pushing for open-source AI tools that anyone can use or adapt.
Open source, okay.
And government grants, specifically targeted at getting this kind of tech into underserved areas. Plus, you see nonprofits already doing things like creating AI-powered reading apps for kids in rural communities globally.
So the aim is equity, trying to make sure every kid, regardless of where they live, gets access to this kind of future-ready education.
That has to be the goal. It's an ethical imperative, really.
And this isn't just about K-12 schools, is it? These AI learning principles seem like they'd apply much more broadly.
Oh, definitely. The impact extends way beyond. Think about higher education, or even corporate training and lifelong learning.
Like how?
Well, imagine starting a new job. Instead of a generic onboarding week, AI could look at your background, your specific role, and curate learning modules just for you.
So you learn what you actually need faster.
Exactly. No time wasted. Or in universities, especially for fields like medicine or engineering. AI-powered virtual labs could let students run complex experiments safely, cheaply.
Learning by doing, but in a virtual space.
Right. Making mistakes, trying again, refining skills without real-world consequences or high costs. It opens up possibilities.
Okay, so if we sort of zoom out and try to capture the core message from all this,
Yeah.
what is it?
I think the central idea, the really powerful takeaway is this. AI doesn't replace teachers. It actually elevates them. It doesn't make students passive receivers. It gives them better tools to actively engage and explore.
And it doesn't try to make everyone the same?
No, that's maybe the most important bit. It celebrates individual differences and adapts to them rather than trying to standardize everyone.
So the future classroom we've been talking about, based on these ideas, it's flexible, it's inclusive, it uses data smartly, but it's also deeply human-centered.
Exactly. It's that blend, the precision and power of AI combined with the empathy, the guidance, the wisdom of a great teacher.
Giving every single learner the specific support they need to really flourish. That does sound like a future worth aiming for.
It really does.
Mhm.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? As AI keeps weaving itself into our lives, what new kinds of human AI collaboration and learning might pop up, things we can't even imagine today.
Hmm.
And how might that change our very definition of what it means to be intelligent?
That's a really provocative thought to leave our listeners with, something to definitely chew on. We hope this deep dive gave you a good glimpse into these exciting possibilities and maybe spark some thoughts on how we can all help shape a future where learning is profoundly human.